Hello there guys, I'm Unstable Voltage, and today we're going to take a quick look at Offworld Trading Company. This is a strategy game that is currently in early access, and it's been in early access for a little while now. But I've held off on covering it because I've wanted to give it a little bit of time to mature and a little bit of time to get some polish. It's currently in Beta 3. And this game is developed by a company called Mohawk Games and published by Stardock Interactive. Now, Mohawk Games is headed up by a guy called Soren Johnson, or Johnson, who was at one point working for Firaxis and actually the designer of Civilization 4. He's also worked on some other games like Civilization 3 and Spore and I think one of the Dragon Age games as well. So he's got quite a good credits list to his name. And this is the first strategy game from his company Mohawk Games. Now, I've been a little bit vague when I've just said strategy because maybe when you hear, you know, the creator, the designer of Civilization 4, you're thinking that it might be some sort of turn-based 4X game or some sort of grand strategy. Well, it isn't any of those. It's actually a real-time strategy. But the term real-time strategy generally gets people thinking of things like Command & Conquer or StarCraft or more recently Grey Goo, where you build up a base and then you build up an army and then you go away and attack your opponent. Well, you don't do that in Offworld Trading Company either. You don't ever really directly interact with your opponents all that much, apart from a rather costly sabotage mechanic, but we'll have a look at that in a second. Let's just quickly go through and see what we've got here. One quick look at the options, because there isn't an awful lot to see. The graphics options are not too bad. You've got certain things that you can turn on and off, like the ambient occlusion and the anti-aliasing, but you don't really have any option to decide what type of AA you want. So if that's something you want to mess around with, you will have to do that in the you know, in your sort of graphics cards driver settings. For some reason, it doesn't always save the settings when I set them. That could be a bug, but I did set it to full screen mode, and it likes to keep reverting that back to what it was before. And you can turn off things like the bloom effect and the motion blur and stuff like that. Audio is rather simple. You've just got a couple of sliders for the volume of the music and the sound effects independently. There's a couple of gameplay options in there. The game does have mod support, of course, and fully rebindable hotkeys, which is nice if you want to go ahead and change all of those. So let's get back out of here. So what have you got in here? Well, you've got some multiplayer stats, or the sort of online leaderboards, essentially. And then you've got single player and multiplayer. Now, I'm going to be doing the single player because it's much easier to do these kind of videos offline. And we'll do a single player skirmish against the AI to show you guys what the game is all about. Multiplayer currently only has a custom match mode. They are going to be adding a quick match option. You can see it's there, but it's greyed out. So that isn't in the game yet. So we're going to go in single player. Single player basically at the moment has 4 options. You've got Learn to Play, which is the tutorial system. You have a new campaign. Now, the campaign is essentially just a series of single player skirmishes with gated content. So essentially, when you first start, you don't have access to all of the buildings and technologies, and as you progress through the campaign, you start to unlock new stuff, and the next time that you play the, well, when you play the next map, you'll get some more stuff that you can use. Then there are these daily challenges where you will have to win a game that has a, you know, sort of specific rule set. And then you've got the skirmishes. Now we're going to go into the skirmish. Now you have quite a lot of difficulty options here. So it goes all the way from applicant right up to CEO. The AI is actually quite good in this game. As you can see, if you choose the different difficulty levels, it actually tells you what your sort of bonuses and handicaps are. I'm going to just put this on intern just for the sort of, you know, convenience of speed for this video. You can choose the map size from tiny all the way up to huge. We're just going to stick with medium. Different types of map. Now basically this just really is the terrain on the map. So normal is relatively, you know, it says normal for Mars includes craters, riverbeds, chaos terrain, smooth plains and volcanoes. You could just go for chaotic, where everything is you know, much more liquidy, lots of canyons and irregular plateaus. You can go for riverbeds, lake beds. You can just pick what you want. We'll just stick it on random, which is what it's on by default. Going to have 3 AI players. And you do have some extra little rules and things that you can adjust, which there probably isn't really any point talking about any of this, because until I've showed you the game, you're not really going to know what any of it does. So let's go in and hit play game. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the game. So the game is currently paused, as you can see up there. Now, you can pause the game because you are playing in single player. So what have we got here? You can see up on the top right hand corner, there are 4 players. There's myself, and then there's Mr. Espionage, there's Mr. Production, and there's Ms. Sabotage. So what do we have to do? Well, the aim of the game is to found a colony on Mars, and then you have to exploit some resources, and with those resources you make money. And what you have to do is you have to use that money to buy the shares from your opponent's companies and buy them out. So as you can see, you actually have the stock value of all of your opponents here, and there are 10 lots of shares that you can buy. Once you've completely bought all of the shares in an opponent, you own that opponent and you get all of their stuff. That is basically the aim of the game, to get more money than all of your opponents and buy them all out. So when it starts, we get to choose a headquarters. Now, there are different types of headquarters that you can have here. There's the expansive headquarters, there's the robotic headquarters, there's the scavenger headquarters, and there's the scientific headquarters. Now, whichever one of these you pick doesn't really change the game an awful lot. It just gives you some slight flavour to how you play. So expansive, for example, can claim, they get 1 extra claim for for each HQ upgrade. Now, claims are how many tiles you're allowed to build things on. And every time you level up your HQ, you gain an extra claim. That's why they're expansive. And they also need 50% less steel for buildings. And they use steel as their base resource. If you look at the robotic, their HQ doesn't rely on food, water or oxygen, but it does use electronics, and it doesn't require any gas for upgrading. So units use power instead of fuel. They get extra bonuses for resources under the HQ, because if you put the HQ down on resources, you do gain them. And buildings receive adjacency bonuses for being next to other buildings that supply an input resource, and they use steel as well. And then you've got the scavengers. The scavengers actually use carbon, but they can use the black market more frequently, which is one of the game's mechanics. And then you've got scientific, who again use steel, but their buildings built over resources use the resources as an input. So normally, to use a resource, you have 2 buildings. You have an extractor that gathers the resource from the ground, and then you have the production building that actually uses the resource. Scientific don't need to do that. They can actually just do it all in one building. We're just going to use the expansive one just to make life easy. Now, the question is, where do we want to build? Well, you can see around the map here, what we can see is we have these little yellow beacons, and these represent where there might be a hidden resource. Now, there's only a little bit of the map here that is actually revealed, so I'm going to go ahead and actually click down here. And what that does is that reveals a little bit of the map, and we can see that we've found some I'm English, so I'm going to say aluminium, although the game calls it aluminum in the American way. So you can see there's 2 tiles here that have aluminium. This one has a high deposit, that's why there are 3 blocks there. This one only has a low deposit. And as you can see, this is now saying that we've explored 1% of the map and I have 5 clicks remaining. Well, we can see there's a resource over here. Let's go ahead and click over in this direction.
Levels of water found.
So now we've revealed that there's some water over here. We can also see there's some more resources over in this direction. So let's go ahead and have a click over here.
Levels of carbon found.
So now we found some carbon. And every time I click, you can see the number of reveals I have goes down and down. There's a lot of resources here. Let's go and click there and see what we've got. It's a lot of carbon.
High levels of carbon found.
Now, we've run out of clicks. We can't explore anymore. Ideally, what we want to get is some water, and we want to get some steel. So there's not an awful lot of that around. Well, we need iron. Iron, carbon, aluminium, water. There's also silicon and geothermal vents, which we'll get later on. If I just go ahead and unpause the game, as time goes on, I will actually get more of these things that I can use to explore bits of the map. So we found some more water, we found geothermal.
That will be useful.
Let's just pause up here. We found some more aluminium, we found some water. So it's difficult to find a good place to actually set down, but I think what we might do is we will put our base down over here. So let's go and click.
Cleared, sir, with Alpha 3 team reporting in.
Now,
We'll have the first factories up and running in no time.
what you're going to notice is you have this very sort of digitized computer voice in the background that reads out pretty much everything that goes on in the game. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to understand, but it fits in well with the theme of the game. Now, what you can see is you actually start with 2,000 shares in your own company. You can sell them if you need to get a little bit of extra money. And my share value is going up because I've now placed down my HQ. Now, it tells me over here how many funds I have. I don't have any debt. I have $8,000 in funds, and I have 4 claims. 4 claims means that I can build 4 upgrades. So what I'm going to want to do at some point is I'm going to want to be able to upgrade the water. Okay, we're going to want to be able to extract the water from there. So what we do, if we go over to the water here, we can see all of the resources that are available in the game. Power as a resource, and then there's water, food, oxygen, fuel, aluminium, iron, steel, carbon, chemicals, silicon, glass, and electronics. These are all the resources that you can buy and sell. So in order to get power, there are several ways. You can get them from solar panels, wind turbines, you can construct geothermal plants, and then there is water. Now, we've got water here. We want to get that water before somebody else nabs it. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Construct Water Pump. And it shows us, all these blue lines show us where the water is. Now, what we could do is we could grab this water over here, because there's more water here. This has 3. This only has 2. So let's go ahead and click that over there. We will unpause the game. Now, we are going to want some other stuff as well. So we've just heard that the scavenger colony has been founded. So this building basically moves over there and sits on the water. We're now gaining the water from the water pump. Let's go ahead and grab the aluminium so we can build that on top of there. Now, we are going to need some power as well. There are geothermal vents down here. Let's see if we can grab one of those nice and early.
Low levels of silicon found. High levels of iron found.
Now, every time you build something, and I'm just going to pause while I'm talking because it makes life a little bit easier. Every time you build something, you will start to incur debt. And at some point, you will have to pay that debt off. Now, as you can see, other AIs are starting to put their bases down, which does reveal some more of the resources. There's some resources over here which we can't really see. We'd like to, but we can't see those there. So we will keep expanding, and we will find more stuff as we go. Now, what we need to do is be able to use this stuff. So we can use an ice condenser. Now, ice condenser requires glass. Now, you do start with some of these resources. And if you want to get some more of them, so say, for example, right, I need a bit more fuel, I can actually just go and buy fuel. And the cost or the value of each of these resources will fluctuate based on supply and demand. So this is how the game basically works. If you get something, if you have a huge abundance of a particular thing, let's say I've got loads of food, and if I sell that food, then the value of food will get lower and lower and lower. However, if I need food and I keep buying a lot of it, its value goes up and up and up, and it becomes more expensive. So what we could do, we could construct a hydroponic farm here, because we're basically going to need to get ourselves some food. And it consumes 1 water to produce 0.55 food. And of course it consumes power as well. It requires steel and it requires glass. Now, we have the glass in stock. If you look down here, we have 35 glass. But what we don't have is the steel. So we're actually going to buy the steel at the current cost, which is $320. So we can do that, and we can put down our little food creation place here. Now, that's going to get its water from this tile here, which we own. And as you can see, the water is automatically coming from this place, and it's this little vehicle here. This is actually bringing the water back. So we need to keep looking around and finding resources that we can use. And all the time, our opponents are doing the same thing. They're basically sending out their little buildings to buy stuff. Now, Miss Sabotage has upgraded her HQ to level 2. That's something that we're going to do, but in order to do it, it's quite expensive because we need 60 steel and we need 60 aluminium. Now, at the moment, we have a little bit of a problem because I don't have the ability. I've got no claims left, so I can't actually build another resource building to collect anything else that I need. But I can buy the aluminium and I can buy the steel. Now, we are making a decent amount of water and food. So what I could do, for example, is I could say, well, okay, I'm going to go and sell a little bit of my food because I don't need quite as much as I have. And then I can go ahead and buy the steel that I need. We're getting a fair bit of aluminium, so that's not a problem. So we've got the funds. Let's just go ahead and buy some more steel. So what we've got here now is we've got this auction where you'll basically get something that you can buy, and just like a real auction, you bid on it and the price goes up. So this is an auction for a new claim to be used on Mars. So this will basically allow us to put another building down. So the high bid is currently 2,000. Let's go and place a bid. That puts it up to 3,000. I'll unpause. It's currently up to 5,000. Now, even though I don't have that much money in the bank... Right, it's gone up to 10,000. We'll go one more. If we get outbid here, we're in trouble. So it looks like we're going to get that claim. No, we've been outbid. Okay, I'm not going to go any higher than that. So even though I didn't have that much money in the bank, that would have automatically given us a little bit of extra debt. So it looks like 16,000 is going to be where the bid ends, and Mr. Production gets it. Very, very expensive, though. So we still should be able to upgrade our HQ. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And we now have additional claims anyway. So we didn't need to go and build those extra claims. So what do we want to get? Well, we want to get some carbon. So if we look under carbon, we can see we can build a carbon elemental quarry. And let's have a look where the best places to build carbon might be. These quarries will also allow us to pick the sand as well. So we could build one over here. And we can also go and grab another one. And we can actually build it right here. We can build it next to this guy's base. Now, there is a little bit of a rule that says you cannot claim a tile next to somebody's HQ if that HQ was founded less than 60 seconds ago. But as you can see, you can compete for resources that are right under your opponent's nose. Now, some of the things that you can do later on in the game is you will have various things in the black market that you can do. So you can purchase a new claim. If the black market is open, you can go and just buy a new plot of land. And then you have these little things here. A lot of these things are sabotage. So for example, you can purchase an EMP. And what it will basically do, if you use that EMP on one of your opponent's bases, or some of their buildings, it will actually shut them down for a short amount of time. You can also use a power surge, which will ripple through buildings and all of the ones that are connected to each other, and it will completely disable them. And, you know, if you've got a lot of buildings that are all close to one another, that can do an awful lot of damage. Then you have things like an underground nuke. If you use an underground nuke on a resource, it will reduce it by 1. So if somebody used an underground nuke on my high volume of water here, it would become medium. Then if they used an underground nuke again, it would become low. So you can actually sabotage your opponent's resource gathering by actually destroying the resource that's directly under their resource buildings. You've also got dynamite, which you can use to take out a specific building, and you can also purchase mutiny, which will basically make your opponent's buildings, your opponent's resource gathering buildings, send some of their stuff to you for a short time. You can also purchase a goon squad. Now, a goon squad is a defensive perk that you can put on one of your buildings, and if your opponent should target that building or the adjacent building with a with some form of sabotage, your goon squad will intercept it. Now, that is about as much interaction as you actually have with your opponents. It's pretty much all you can do. You can just do these sabotage things over here. So we've still got some extra claims that we can make. We could go ahead and grab a little bit of extra water. Probably isn't a bad idea to do that, so that's what we will do. I'm just going to have a look around on the map and see if there's anything else that we'd like to grab. I'm just going to go ahead and unpause right now. So what have we got? We've got some silicon over there. We have some more aluminium over here. We've got carbon. So one thing we're going to need is we need to make steel. Now steel just requires iron, so we can build a steel mill. And that doesn't need to go directly on top of the resource, so we can actually just put it down right next to our HQ. And you do get adjacency bonuses for certain buildings. So if we were to go ahead and build another hydroponic farm and put it next to our existing one, you can see that we get a 50% bonus for having 2 hydroponic farms next to each other. So the placement of your buildings is very, very important. So as you can see, my share value is quite high. Most of the reason for this is because I'm actually playing on an easier difficulty level, so it just gives us a little bit of a boost there. And you can see that once we've actually increased the level of our HQ, we have a few more options here that we can actually... Oh, so it looks like someone set off a nuke somewhere. Yep, Mr. Espionage was targeted by an underground nuke. So, as you can see, somebody's had some of their resources reduced. So, as I was saying, once you've upgraded your HQ to the first level, you get a few of these buildings that you can build here. You can get the Pleasure Dome, for example, and it provides a crazy party spot for colonists that rake in the cash. So, Pleasure Domes basically just generate money for you when you put them next to the colony. You then have things like a Patent Lab. Patent Labs allow you to unlock certain technologies that give you certain advantages. There's one thing that's called like angular drilling or something that allows you to basically put a resource gathering building down, but it won't just gather a resource that's below it. You can actually gather the resource at the side of it, and that is really useful if somebody's already claimed something that's good. So for example, this water's been claimed here. If I got the angular drilling patent, I could basically start a water pump here next to it, and it would be able to dig down diagonally and still access that water. So there are some pretty cool things that you can do with that if you build the Patent Lab. You've got things like the engineering labs, which improve the resource production of buildings. You've got the hacker array, which is what allows you periodically to be able to drop or increase the price of something on the market. So let's say that you have something that you have an abundance of. What you can do then is you can use the hacker array to bump the price up and then sell it all off really, really quickly and get a lot of money for it. If you think one of your opponents has something that they've got an abundance of, you can hack the market and drop the price of it and make their stock absolutely worthless. So it's quite an interesting little idea there. So we're getting a little bit more debt. We'll just allow this to carry on a little bit more. The black market is open here, so what I could do if I wanted to, let's pick a target, shall we? Let's see if we can find somebody that we could potentially pick on. Who's currently out in the lead? It was either Mr. Espionage or Miss Sabotage. They're both doing quite well, really, aren't they? What have we got over here? They've been targeted by something because these buildings are frozen. So enemy Sabotage has stopped them. Let's have a look around and see what we've got. Let's go for this one here. This is Miss Sabotage. She's got a water pump here, and as you can see, this has a high level of water. So let's go ahead and purchase ourselves an underground nuke, and we will target it down here. Let's just go ahead and unpause the game. So that's where we're going to target our nuke. Should be able to do it here. There we go. As you can see, that has now reduced the amount of water in that tile. Let's just make sure we've got that deselected. And that wasn't one of my buildings either, I don't think. So people are still expanding. So basically what we need to do now is try and get some more money so we can start buying our opponent's stock. So, do we have an awful lot of anything? Well, yeah, we've got quite a lot of food, and food's worth quite a bit. So, let's go ahead and sell some food. We could also go ahead and sell some aluminium, because we have a lot of that. But you will see that the value of it goes down. Because I'm selling it off, the demand for the aluminium is really dropping quickly, and as a result, it becomes almost worthless. We can go ahead and sell a lot of our water as well, but it's going to have the same effect. The value is going to go down. And the black market is also on a cooldown, so you can't just spam and just, you know, nuke your opponents over and over again. So, here's an auction for pirates. We may well not be able to afford this. We'll try again. It's going to cost us a fair bit of money, but it looks like we'll get it. Okay, so we now have the ability to place down pirates. Now, what pirates allow you to do is if you find one of your enemy's transport sort of directions, look at this, for example. Look at all of these transports that are moving backwards and forwards from these quarries over here. All of these transports are going back to Mr. Production over here. So what we can do is we can grab our pirates and we can drop them right here.
Pirates.
And then
I hate those filthy bandits.
What these pirates will do is they will start intercepting some of these deliveries and start shooting them down, which will reduce the amount of stuff that actually gets over there to Mr. Production. Won't shoot down every single one, but it will certainly cause a little bit of problems with them. There we go, we've plundered 21 carbon from Mr. Production. So we're going to start getting some carbon from him. Now we've got quite a lot of debt here, which we are going to have to start paying off. So we are going to pay off some of that. We still have a lot of food. Food is very, very valuable at the moment, so let's go ahead and sell a lot of our food while the value is still high. We can produce food very, very quickly, so it's not a problem. Pay off some more of our debt. Now, we don't have any claims left. Mr. Espionage was targeted by dynamite. One of his water pumps have been taken out. Look at the value of carbon at the moment. It's actually, well, it's fluctuating, but we have a lot of it. We have a lot of carbon. So let's go ahead and sell off a lot of the carbon that we have. We also have a lot of silicon. Now what we could do is we could actually, if we had an extra claim, we could construct a glass furnace. Glass furnace requires silicon and steel. We don't have much steel going on at the moment. We do have a steel mill, but we don't really have any iron coming. So we need to go ahead and build a metal mine. We're going to need another claim for that. So we'll keep just paying off the debt. And we will sell off some more stuff. Now, as you can see, we're actually out of fuel, which means we're having to purchase our fuel, and that's costing us quite a bit of money. We've also got a food shortage as well, but look at the value of food going up now. Because there's a food shortage, the value is absolutely skyrocketing. So I'm going to keep my eye on that. Now, it stopped going, well, it is still going up. Before it starts going down, we'll sell off a load of our food. And then maybe we can use that to offset some of our fuel. Let's go ahead and sell some of our silicon, because we can't really make any glass at the moment. We can go ahead and sell off a lot of our aluminium, because we can't do an awful lot with that. Food prices seem to have stopped. No, it's still going up very, very slowly. But let's go and sell off a lot of our food, because we're making loads. So now we've got a lot of money in the bank. And then what we can do is we can go over to one of our opponents, and we can buy some of their shares. Now, we've still got some money here. So here's one of those patents that I spoke about that you can get from the patent lab. Some of them also go up for auction. Now this is patent auction for cold fusion. Buildings are powered with water, which means you no longer need power to run buildings. You can do it with water. So it can be quite a nice thing to get. So we'll just let this auction pass. And there we go, and someone wins that. So as you can see, I could sell off some of these shares in somebody else's company, or I can buy more. And every time you buy them, the value of their shares goes up. Now, once you get towards the last few shares, you might find that your opponent starts buying their own shares, so that you can't take them over completely. So if your opponent, say, has the last 3,000 shares, you will have to have enough money to buy all 3,000 of their shares in one go and do a buyout. Once you completely buy out one of your opponents, you will gain their HQ and all of their buildings, and they are out of the game. And that's basically it. That is how you win in this game. You buy your opponents out. So I've pretty much shown you the majority of the mechanics from the game. And that's the thing that I find a little bit disappointing. The concept of the game is absolutely fantastic. I really like the idea of this sort of race to gather resources and manipulating the market by buying low and selling high. It's a really, really neat idea. And sometimes you can beeline a resource which may not be all that useful to you in the early game, but it means you can get a massive stockpile and sell it off when the resource is worth an awful lot. So it's not just a case of saying, well, you know, we need water and food early on, so that's all I'm going to build. You can say, well, you know, I've got an opportunity here to start making glass, and if I stockpile a lot of glass, then I can sell it all off for a lot of money and use the money to buy food and water. So you've got options to play in different ways. Unfortunately, For me, it feels like the mechanics of the game are a little bit shallow. I'm not saying that the game isn't enjoyable, but there isn't really a lot to learn. To be honest, you can play through one skirmish and you will have seen pretty much everything the game has to offer. Yes, there are 4 different HQs that you can pick to start with, and they do change the way some of the resources or some of the playstyle works in that game. But essentially, you're going to have the same resources available, you're going to have the same buildings and technologies available to you, and you're going to have the same sort of sabotage available to you as well. So it isn't really going to change anything about the way the game works in any meaningful fashion. Which brings me to another point, the actual value of the game. Now, for me, I would say the biggest value in this game is actually the multiplayer. Because you're not directly attacking each other with armies like you would be in something like Command & Conquer, the actual goal of this game becomes more of a race. You're racing to be the first person to buy or capture certain resources on the map. You're racing to be the first person to build certain buildings. You're racing to be the first person to unlock certain technologies. You're racing to be the first person to upgrade your HQ. But more importantly, you're racing to be the first person to make huge amounts of money to buy off the weaker opponents. And it feels quite unfulfilling doing that against the AI. The AI is actually very good, and playing at anything above the low difficulty levels, the AI can really give you a kicking. It's really, really well done. But I think the actual fun and value comes in playing it with other players. It comes in playing the game as a multiplayer game and racing against your friends. That's the thing that makes it fun. However, the one thing that does disappoint me about it is the price tag. It's currently priced at £29.99 British pounds, so 30 British pounds, which I think is about $40. And that's quite expensive for an indie game that is relatively mechanically shallow. I know that sounds like I'm hating on the game. I do quite enjoy it. I don't think that it's a bad game, and I really like the idea. But I think for what you actually get, £30, $40 is maybe asking a little bit too much. I think realistically it needs to be around about half of that for what you get. Now, of course, it is still in early access, and there are potentially extra things that can be added as time goes on. However, everything that I have read from the developer says that the game is mechanically complete, and everything that's going on at the moment is really just bug fixing, optimizations and polish. So I don't think that we're going to see an awful lot more added to the game. So let's pay off some debts there. We can go ahead and sell off some water. It's still quite valuable. We have a load of it. Of course, that drops the price every time we do it. We can sell off a lot more food. We're out of fuel, and we're having to build to buy quite a lot of our fuel in. But that gives us some more money, which we can use to start buying out one of our opponents. So as you can see, Mr. Espionage only has 3,000 shares left. We're probably not going to get enough money to be able to buy him out completely. Let's just see if we can buy somebody out just to demonstrate that, just so that I can show you guys how it works. I'm not playing to win here because obviously, I am running quite short on some of my resources, and the value of my resources is plummeting like a rock. But I'm going to go ahead and what I could do is I could actually, oh, that was something going off there, an EMP. I can actually shift click and sell off like 100 at a time here. So sometimes they'll view off a specific plot of land, like this one here, so we can just go ahead and buy this plot if we wanted to, but I don't want to do that. So hopefully we'll just wait for that auction to finish. Of course, while that's going on, I can still sell some stuff if I want to. Wow, they really want that plot with the iron, don't they? As you can see, people have a lot more money now. So there we go. And then what I should be able to do is I might have just enough money. Oh, I'm just slightly short. Let's see if we can sell off some more water. And well, we don't have an awful lot more that we could sell off. And there we go. We've now bought out Mr. Espionage. So Mr. Espionage's stuff now becomes mine. So all of his buildings become mine, and we are now down to just 2 opponents. And of course this now means that I have 2 HQs to upgrade. But that's basically it in a nutshell. That is how the game works, and once you have bought out all of your opponents, you have won. So in conclusion, I think it is an interesting game. It's got a very interesting idea behind it. The aesthetic's quite is quite nice. It's easy to pick up and it's easy to learn, but I don't think the value is there. Certainly if you've got friends to play it with, then it's probably going to have a lot of replayability. But if you're the sort of person that only likes to play either single-player campaigns or just play single-player skirmishes, I don't really think that it is going to hold your interest for all that long, particularly the campaign, because it's not really a story-driven campaign as such. It is literally just a collection of the single-player skirmishes where you start off with only limited resources and limited buildings that you can build. So this is Offworld Trading Company by Mohawk Games. Like I said, it is available on Steam Early Access, currently priced at £30 UK, and I believe around $40 US. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you on the next video. Until then, goodbye for now.